What's going on, Saviors? GH here. Today we're going to take a look on what I believe is the best scout build overall. It's good with PvE and PvP. And as usual, we're gonna show the skills, what they do, and tell you guys the reason why each of these classes are here in this build, the pros and cons, and some of my thoughts at the end of the video. And with that said, here is BulletMarker, Sheriff, and Assassin. Let's do this. Here it is! There's the BulletMarker, Sheriff, and Assassin. Let's start with BulletMarker. Now, BulletMarker is the main pistol class in Scout Class 3. It's specialized on pistol attacks that can deal with a variety of situations, albeit mobbing or single target. The reason this class is here is because this is the main class of this build. Because this will be the main source of attacks in this build. Not everything, but the most relevant ones. Those skills are as follows. First off is double gun stance. Let me just emphasize this, guys. This is the skill that makes you dual wield a gun. Yes, this is the skill that makes you hold two pistols and give you the ability to move while shooting. Aside that, this also gives you 40% damage to pistol attacks, not daggers, pistol only. And this also enables the use of most BulletMarker attacks like RIP. It's an area attack in front of you. This is your strongest BulletMarker attack. This can be further improved by getting the Vibora Cryolite pistol, which reduces its cooldown and increases its level. But don't stress yourself on getting that Vibora pistol because the Glacia pistol is easier to get and cheaper and can contribute to the whole party. Next skill is Mozambique. This is a single target attack that can ricochet. It means it bounces off to another enemy. This skill also benefits from the Vibora Cryolite pistol. Fourth BulletMarker skill is Bloody Overdrive. It's an area attack around you and it has an attribute that makes you immune to damage when Bloody Overdrive is active. It's an iframe skill. Fifth skill is Napalm Bullet. It's a fire elemental pistol attack in front of you. Pretty standard skill. You need it even at level 1 because this will help you stack overheat buff. We will talk about that in a bit. Yeah, you need it even at level 1 because of the next skill, which is related to all the offensive attacks we just mentioned. And it's called Outrage. This is a skill that converts your overheat stacks to outrage stacks, which can be used to improve the capabilities of your BulletMarker attacks. Before we go to the additional effects, let's tackle the overheating stack first. And you can gather it by just using BulletMarker skills. This is the overheating stack and it can be stacked up to 40. And when you have overheating stacked up, you can convert it to outrage stack, which has no duration. It will be there until it's used. And what outrage stacks does is improve the capabilities of your BulletMarker skills, like I said. Like for example, RIP. When you have outrage stacks, RIP will ignore some enemy defense and gets more increased damage, but in exchange, it will consume one outrage stack. For Mozambique, when you have outrage stack, it will reduce the damage but makes it hit 2 times, and it also consumes outrage stacks. Now for Bloody Overdrive, when you have outrage stack, the damage will be reduced by 25%, but the attacks will hit everything around. And yes, it also consumes outrage stack. And for Napalm Bullet, when you have outrage stack, there will be a debuff that inflict more damage as the enemy is hit. It's the taste debuff. And those are the skills that gets affected by outrage. There are more BM skills like Freeze Bullet. This is a buff that gives your basic attack the ability to freeze enemies. And there's an attribute for this that changes the effect, and it's called Silver Pellet. And instead of freezing, it will turn your pistol attacks to Holy Element, which is good if you're fighting a Dark Element boss. And last skill is Tracer Bullet. It increases your accuracy, but what's good about this is there's an attribute for this called Precision Shot. And what it does is adds 20% minimum critical rate to all your pistol attacks, which will help if you have low crit rate to begin with. And that's BulletMarker. The recent changes definitely helped it rise from the OK Scout class to the worthy class to pick. And now let's head on to BulletMarker's tag team class. And it's Sheriff. Now Sheriff is a class that specializes on pistol attacks, which makes it a good combo for BulletMarker. And that's the reason it's here, because the recent changes gave Sheriff an attribute that further increases the attack damage of pistol attacks. And BulletMarker is another pistol user class. Let's take a look at the attribute. It's called Reload. And what it does is every time a Sheriff skill goes on cooldown, you get a buff that increases chance of critical damage by 40% and all attack damage by 2% per stack. And it can go up to 10 stacks. This is a pretty good attribute because you're gonna be using your Sheriff skills anyway, so for sure it will be maxed out. First Sheriff skill is West Raid. This gives you 100% accurate hits when the buff is active. And there's an art for this that will instead double your critical rate, but it will slowly lowers as the duration goes down. It will stop at 30% increased crit rate, which is still pretty good. For example, if you look at your stats, you see 3k crit rate. If you use West Raid with the art, it will be 6k. Next skill is Redemption. This will give you 100% evasion for 20 seconds, even at level 1. Next skill is Peacemaker. This is just recently buffed with higher skill factor. It deals moderate single target damage that inflicts silence and fatigue that increases aiming shot damage, which is the next skill. We'll touch on that in a bit. There's an art for this that makes it hit multiple targets but remove the silence debuff. Next skill is Aiming Shot. It's an unevadable attack that removes enemy buffs the longer you hold it down, and it also gets additional damage if the target is under the fatigue debuff. Next skill is Fanning. This is a shooting forward pistol attack that hits multiple targets. You need to hold it down to make it continue attacking. Nice skill with decent skill factor and low cooldown. Now for the last Sheriff skill, it's called Quick Draw. This is a quick line attack that deals moderate damage for one shot. But cool thing with this is you can use it 5 times, which makes it one of your best Sheriff skills. It's another high damage skill with low cooldown. And that's Sheriff. Right now, it's a decent class for single target. We still haven't seen its full potential because there's no Viboro pistol for Sheriff yet. And my guess is that pistol will be the pistol, since the Cryolite pistol is mediocre at best. For now, use the Glacia pistol. It's cheaper, easily farmable, and also helpful to your party members because Glacia pistol inflicts a debuff automatically that makes enemies receive 40% more damage, which can be exploited also by your teammates. Enough of that, let's head on to the last class, Assassin. Now, Assassin is a class mainly taken because of its utility skills. And the reason this class is here is because this will give you more crit damage, crit rate, another iframe, an AoE attack that will help this build surely because this build is that great for mobbing. Well, most scouts are not that great for mobbing anyway. Let's just take a look at the skills. First off is Hasisas. This will give you more critical damage for 30 minutes. Next skill is Annihilation. This is a wide area attack that deals damage. And what's good about this is it's also an iframe. You're immune to damage when using this. Third skill is Instant Acceleration. This is a dash attack that can stun, but mostly it's used for mobility. This is a very important skill because this will get you to a safe distance. Fourth skill is Hallucination Smoke. More importantly, this will reduce enemy crit resist by 20%. And there's an art for this that makes it inflict a debuff called Assassination Debuff, and that makes the debuffed enemy a priority for Behead teleportation. And that debuff also increases dagger damage by 25%. Now Behead. This is the skill that makes enemies bleed. It also inflicts damage, and in PvP, your character moves behind the enemy to attack. And this skill deals 200% more damage when cloaking is active. Cloaking is a scout skill. It's the stealth skill. Last skill is Piercing Heart. This is the attack that accelerates bleeding, stops enemies from recovering, and with the proper attribute, every time you use Piercing Heart, your crit rate increases by 50% for 10 seconds. And that's Assassin, a pretty good class for boosting damage of a certain build, as well as adding survivability and mobility. And that's the build. Now let's do the good and the bad. Let's start with the bad. The main problem that I encounter here is, as most of the scout classes, this build is not good for mobbing. It's workable, but not as great as the true AoE classes in this game. Another is burst damage. You do not have it here. You need to build up first before getting a significant damage increase. And lastly, this build also requires two sub-weapons, a pistol and a dagger. And in my opinion, it's not good, especially for new players. And now let's do the good stuff. First is, this is pretty good for boss fighting, especially the ones that last for a long time. Another is, this build has 3 reliable iframes, 2 on Overdrive and 1 on Annihilation. Another good thing is mobility. You have one here. All in all, in my opinion, this is the best scout class build for doing everything in game. Good for PvE and PvP. If you're looking for a scout class build right now that uses pistols, this is the build. If you want to increase the boss fighting capability, you can either change Assassin to Rangda or Shinobi. Good thing about Rangda and Shinobi is they can use pistol, which will eliminate the need for a dagger. And that's it, guys. What do you think? Is the build still not good enough? Or are you planning on doing this build except with slight changes? Share it to us in the comment section down below. And if you like the video, hit the thumbs up, share, and then subscribe to be part of the Gaming Hardcore family. And as always, this is Gaming Hardcore. See you in the next one.